Hi, my name is Jonathan Ross. I'm an instructor of digital media, and I'm going to be taking you through a few demos of HTML and Flash websites on mobile devices. Now, I'm going to be using a desktop that I have here, as well as this is the ASUS ePad transformer right here, and then I also have an iOS device, an iPad, and this is the original iPad. So what we're going to take a look at are HTML5 and Flash websites and how they perform on mobile devices. So let's get started. Hi there, it's Jonathan again. First thing that we're going to take a look at are some desktop websites. First one that I have is called Agent 8Ball, which is really cool, agent8ball.com. And what it is a pool game. So you can click and drag and interact. Now I've turned off the sound. You can see, though, it's got some sound. There we go. So I'm able to play the game. Now, what I'd like to do is see if I can play this game on the iOS device as well as my Android tablet. So here's the website coming up on the iOS device. This is an iPad, the original iPad, and we'll take a look at it. So here it is. I can click on the screen, but I'm able to do no other interaction other than click. So the HTML5 does render, but it doesn't actually allow me to actually use it. And I get the same experience with using an Android tablet to do it. It will allow me to play it and render it, but I can't actually interact with it because there's no click and drag on the device without you programming that click and drag in like you would for any other mobile device. So let's try something else. Let's go to a creative black tie. This is a really nice HTML5 website. You'll hover over the different items. It will give you some idea about what something is, and then it will go to that when you click on it. This is about an iPad application, in fact. So let's see if we can actually see that website and interact with it. So here's the website, blacktie.es. And the problem with this is that we don't have hovers the way that we have hovers on the desktop. We can just click on the items. And so it's kind of mystery meat navigation because we don't know exactly what we're going to. But you can see it marginally works, and I can kind of click on the different items. I guess I can click on the screen and it will jump from one to the other. So a little bit of interaction there with HTML5 for sure. And then I get pretty much the same experience on an Android tablet. And then I'd click and close it. Now, this is another very common one, the Atlas World's Fair. And the idea about this is that you'd be able to scroll down and that the character would stay there in the middle, and you can kind of see him staying there. And it would go down the page. Now, on an Android device, you can see that the guy does actually go down the page. But there's some refresh items for sure. As you scroll too fast, then you lose all the graphics, and then they pop in afterwards. On a iOS device, our experience is not so good. As we scroll up the page, the guy stays there, and it waits to refresh the screen until we've scrolled down a fair amount, and it can load that other content. Oh, there it comes. So looking at this, not so sure. Let's try another website. This one is Nike A Better World. This is one of the ones that's, like a flash killing website. And it's really great. It's got this parallax scrolling as we scroll down the page. And you've got some items on the right-hand side that you can click to go down. Very cool site. Very rich HTML5 experience and parallax. And then a couple places where we've got some pretty simple interaction. Just some basic stuff there. Let's try this website on an iPad. Since it's HTML5, we actually try and scroll with it, and it does nothing. They've actually made it so that it just gives you static images. because it doesn't work well on an iPad, even though it is HTML5. And a couple things they can actually use, such as this part. That can kind of fade in, but it's got some issues. On an Android device, they haven't limited it from showing that. And by the way, you'll notice on the Android device, we actually get the little dots on the right-hand side that we can jump around to. But the experience of using it is definitely not as good as you find on a desktop environment. Although we do get a little bit of the parallax scrolling that the website is famous for. But once again, our experience of HTML5 on the mobile device is not very good. So let's take a look at some other demos. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't create a mobile website that does work really well. For example, this one, Projector, is a really great website, and it actually knows that I'm on a mobile device. Now you'll see on a desktop experience it's a little bit, it's just click and then you'd have to click on all the items. But on a mobile device like an iPad, it will, or this actually happens to be a Android tablet, I can actually click on items, go to the people, click on them, and then flick through the different items, or at least I'm supposed to be able to flick through. But unfortunately, the flicking doesn't work on the Android device. However, on the Apple device, if I go to this particular website, if I go to my people, click on them, you'll see I can then flick through the different people. So quite a nice experience from that standpoint. Now I can also kind of navigate the design by flicking as well, which unfortunately on the Android device doesn't give me that same ability. So it only works on iOS. It does not work on the Android operating system, even though it uses standard HTML5 code. Now, where we are seeing a lot of development of HTML5 websites are really kind of mobile websites. For example, this one for M-Smart USA. This is for the smart car. This is a mobile site, but obviously it doesn't work so well on a tablet. It's really meant for a smartphone, such as I have an Android smartphone right here. So the experience of it is really set to fit this small screen of a device this small, not these larger screens. So once again, it's really optimized for just that one use. It's not optimized for use across a lot of different devices, like they say is the promise of HTML5. Now, the other major thing that I wanted to look at are applications that are written in HTML5. Now, applications, I think, are the next big wave of what HTML5 can do. This is a drawing application called Vector Paint, and it's really quite cool. You can click on the items and change the size and change the colors and rotate them and do all sorts of stuff. And this is written in HTML5. Now there's some other ones too, like MugTug, Sketchpad, which is an HTML5 application where you can draw and do photo editing. Now, trying to use this particular application on an Android device or an iOS device is not quite as good. Trying to load it. Okay, so here we go. I've loaded up the Vector Paint application on here. And I cannot click on anything. Can't do anything at all. On the iOS device, I also cannot do anything, nor does it actually load fully. So it really doesn't like that HTML5 application. On the desktop, it works fine. Now, we have the same problem with Sketchpad.net. Sketchpad.net doesn't work on either an Android or a iPad because of the fact that it doesn't support the touch screen or the touch interactions and touch and gestures. And it's also probably because this is Canvas and it's not well implemented yet across many of these. Now, one of the other things, of course, where HTML5 is saying that they're really going to do a lot of improvement, and I love finding websites like this one, Sprightly.net. This one says, no problem, no flash, no problem on the right-hand side. So obviously, it's great on anything like mobile devices. Well, maybe not the case. Number one, our performance is very, very slow on something like an iPad. We can click and move around the object, but this other one we're supposed to be able to click and drag like this, and it's not possible to click and drag on the iOS device. And the same project does not do very well in here either. Now, another one that I love, which shows how great HTML5 can be, is this guy. This is the CSS3 animation hit list. It's a guy who's developing some different animations for CSS3. One of them I really love. It's called the CS3 Spider-Man. And it says, look ma, no flash, we'll play this animation. So, it's pretty cool. So you can see the animation happening fairly well on the desktop. Let me zoom up so you can see it better. Now the problem with this is that it only works at the one in particular size. If you scale it up like this, it tends to break the actual origin points of the objects, and it actually makes it not always work correctly. Look at the hand up there in the top hand corner. Now, let's take a look and see if we can play this CSS3 Spider-Man on the Apple device, iOS device. Since it's written in HTML5 and CSS3, it should work no problem. And unfortunately, that's as far as we can get. Now, that on the Android tablet is actually possible to watch, but we get the same problems of the animation not syncing correctly. Here we go. So we can play it here. And so if we scale, you'll see we've got some really big quality issues. In fact, its refresh rate is not very good. So that is basically what we get for HTML5. And we found that a lot of HTML5 things, unless they are specifically created for mobile, don't do so well. So the next thing to look at is actually some stuff for Flash. Now, if we look at a typical Flash website, this one is called Mug. I'm going to actually close that one so I don't want the sound. You'll notice that the experience of using this website is not even close to the experience that we typically see on an HTML5 website at this point. Now, it's not to say that HTML5 will not grow and add a lot of complexity to it, but obviously we're at the very beginning of the HTML5 when it comes to creative uses of it. Now, that being said, we can actually look at a lot of websites like these on an Android device, even if they are Flash-based, and they work quite well. For example, this one for Nana Shoes is a website created in Flash. So I'm going to take a look at it on the Android device, and you'll see that the experience of using this is actually very close across the two browsers. We've got the animated object. So here we go. I'm going to have that come up now. This is playing in on the Asus. You'll see we have the sound, so I'm going to turn off the desktop. I'm also going to make this go full screen. So let's go to the collection. I can go between the different shoes. I can zoom up to a larger view. There's a little bit of lag here and there, for sure. But the point is that we're getting an experience that is not HTML. It's a Flash experience, and I'm getting it on a mobile device. So it is running, and it's running actually quite well overall. I won't say that it's perfect, but it gives me the experience to view these websites and do things that I can't get, of course, with HTML5 at this point. Now, what about applications? Some very common applications are things such as the image editor for Aviary tools, or one of the ones that I really love. Oh, well, let's go with the advanced image editor. There we go. These are, and I like the vintage retro effects here. These are image editors created in Flash or Flex, and I can actually use them on the desktop, and they work quite well. I mean, they're almost, Photoshop type clones at times. So I'm going to go to the same application on the Android device, go to the Advanced Suite, Advanced Image Editor. So I'm going to launch that. And now this is loading as a Flash application. I'm going to maximize my screen a little bit. Start from scratch, create. I can go to a brush tool, and I can actually draw on the screen. Now this is using Flash once again, not using HTML5. So the point of this is that you can actually use some Flash and be quite effective. Now that's not the most effective one that I've seen out there for sure. I definitely like the Pixlr better. And with the photo or vintage effects, I can load an image from my computer, or I can sometimes take a picture. This one wants to do a webcam, but the problem is that my computer or my Flash does not necessarily see the device camera when you're running it through a browser. It really needs to be installed as an Air application on the device itself. So that being said, I actually do have this as an installable application somewhere on this device. Let's see, Pixlr-O-Matic. So here's the actual same application, which I can take a picture. So let me take a picture of myself. Oh, covering up some of the thing. So we've got a picture of myself there. I'll hit OK. And now I can add things to it. I can change the color. I can change some lighting to it. I can give it a nice little border. There's a whole bunch of other borders. That one's kind of fancy there, kind of like that. And then I can either save it to my computer or upload it to imo.io. So that's kind of cool. The same exact possibility exists in the online version, except it looks a little bit different. I'm going to bring up a picture of my fiance. So here it is in the browser, not as an installed application. But I can choose a color filter and go to the next item. I can choose some sort of effect to apply to it. I can choose a border. And then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and save it. Beautiful. Now it's saving that picture for me. and it's given me the link to go to. So I've just saved that picture from my device to an online website using Flash in a browser. So there's actually a lot of rich interaction that you can accomplish with Flash and an Android device, a mobile device. Now, this is not where Flash shines. What I wanted to show was also where Flash really does shine, and that is where Flash has always shined, and that is the ability to do animations. This one is a very common one, very well-known animation called Animation versus Animator. And you can see it works quite well on the desktop. And of course, the same animation will play just fine on an Android device. Let's make it go full screen. And here you can see the Animation versus Animator, or Animator versus Animation, animation on my Android device using Flash. And it actually is very, very quick. And this does a lot of things that we don't have any tools for HTML5 at this point that can create this level and complexity of animation. Now, of course, there are other great animations out there. One of my favorites, which is a much more complex animation, is called Radiohead Creep. And it's created by Low Morale. And it has over 1 million keyframes. It's amazing. The guy took 3 months to create this animation. And you can see when you actually start watching this, it's a very complex animation. And it really proves that you can do some amazing things with Flash, and that you wouldn't come close to doing this with any of the HTML5 animation tools at this point. I don't think we'll ever actually even get to HTML5 animation like this unless we go through tools such as Flash to create the HTML5 itself. I would definitely suggest that you watch this animation because it's really an amazing animation that shows what you can do with Flash and frame-by-frame animations itself. And you'll also see that it renders quite well on a transformer or another Android tablet that's a little bit more modern. Now, of course, gaming is also a big thing for Flash. And we can play a very cheesy game, such as this one is called Lucky Balls. Let's see, that same thing, bringing it up here. It's playing the same on both devices. We can make it go full screen. And we can actually play the game. So the idea is to get 3 in a row, and then you can get rid of the color. It's a very common game. Now, once they've got it designed like this, they could easily take it into an actual Android game just by repackaging it and doing some tweaking. I'd say that they could probably do to make it fit the device better and to respond even quicker than it is now. Of course, there are other beautiful games out there. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was really about the fact that the big stink, in a way, about HTML5 versus Flash has really been about audio and video playback. And if we go ahead and take a look at some of the websites that are out there, like Adobe TV, this one is actually playing through Flash. And it will play quite well. This is a Flash player from AdobeTV.com that's showing that Flash plays quite well in our devices. Now, of course, I could go, it looks like it's actually coming up with the mobile version of it versus coming up with the desktop version of it. So let's try YouTube. Whoops. Let me go back. There we go. So they've actually, looks like they've redirected to an HTML5. And that's really where you see things working with HTML5 much better, is audio and video. But there's a main reason why, and that's because this mobile device and this mobile device, the iPad, have processors in them that are created in order to decompress the HTML5 video codec, which is H.264. That's the most common codec you find on devices. So let's see a 300-yard swing. I'll go ahead and play it right in the browser, which means it'll play through Flash. Now, I should disclaim that I have a fairly slow internet connection here. But definitely you can see here is where the HTML5 and the Flash are a little bit different. We do tend to find better performance of audio and video when it is done through native wrappers, such as the H.264 audio and video tags in HTML. For some reason, it's not even coming up at this point, but I don't think that that is actually a problem of this particular of Flash. It might be a problem of this particular connection I have. But of course, we can go through the YouTube application and see if it does better. And that's what a lot of people, it's actually saying unsupported video format, so we may have something going on there. Here we go. It's buffering it, and it's going to pull it up. So there's one of the things that we do find is not as quite of a good experience. But I think it's because people aren't optimizing their projects for mobile. Now, that being said, I suggest that you go ahead and take a look at, hey there, of HTML websites yourself and make your own opinions. So there you have it. I've gone through a number of different technologies and a number of different websites using both HTML5 and Flash today on many different devices, including the desktop, the iPad, and the Android Asus EE Transformer tablet, and just to check out the performance of all the different devices. And I've come to some conclusions. That is that HTML5 or Flash is not really a debate. They're not the same thing. They can't do exactly the same things. And the animation in HTML5 is going to take a long time until it matures to the level that Flash already has. And so for that one niche side of Flash, HTML5 will never really compete, in my opinion. Plus, there just aren't the design tools for HTML5 that Flash currently has. Now, application development in HTML5 definitely looks very promising, but right now there aren't a lot of places that have developed online HTML applications that are optimized or will work on a mobile device. And it's because they generally don't take care of the touch events that mobile devices use. Instead, and gestures as well. Instead, they use HTML canvas and things like that, and they don't typically respond well on mobile devices. So until people start developing HTML5 applications specifically for mobile, I think it's going to be difficult to use those applications. Now, Flash, on the other hand, actually does have a number of applications that you can use in a mobile browser such as the Android tablet, but they're not the best experience in the world. Now, they've been able to take that experience through things like the Pixlr and Pixlr-O-Matic. They've been able to take that experience and take it from the desktop and actually put it on the device and have it work quite effectively. So I really see a lot of promise there, and that's what Adobe has said that they're going to commit to anyway. They said that they're going to stop development of the Flash plugin for mobile devices as a web browser plugin, but they're going to continue to work on using Flash and Adobe Air, Adobe Integrated Runtime, to develop applications for the mobile devices. And I think that that's where we're going to hopefully see Flash shine in the mobile spectrum. If you have any questions or if you have any comments, please leave them on YouTube, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.